Hello friends, welcome to the series of in-depth news analysis. Today we are going to discuss about an important news which was discussed in the Hindu newspaper 19th April 2020. The news is the government nod is made the government nod it made compulsory for FDI from the neighboring countries. This is the news of discussion from which we are going to extract the important information. We are going to frame the questions and I will also help you in finding out the answers of those questions. So about this news, why I am discussing about this news? The reason is, before some days, Rahul Gandhi made a tweet against the foreign companies taking over stressed Indian companies amid economic slowdown. As we know that Indian economy is in the state of crisis and the stock market is not also able to perform as it is desired. The shares of the Indian companies are going down, and that is why this creates a perfect condition for the multinational company to purchase the shares and equity at low prices in the Indian company. Rahul Gandhi made this statement because recently the Bank of China acquired 1% equity in a housing finance company named as HDFC. When the Bank of China acquired the stake in the housing finance company, that means HDFC, that had created a discussion in the Indian discourse that whether India should revise the FDI norms. So our discussion will be centered on about discussing that how India is going to make the changes and what are the repercussions. So let's first discuss about why FDI norms have been revised. Because China's economic footprint is increasing in India. In 2014, the investment from India was $1.6 billion. It jumped to $8 billion in 2017. That means there is a jump of 5 times within 3 years, according to Brookings India report. And these investments significantly are there in the startup ecosystem. If we see the investment value from 2016 to 2019, we can see that the investment basically is in infrastructure, consumer goods, energy, real estate and automobiles. If you look the style of investment which is changing from 2016, in 2016 most of the investment was there in infrastructure. Slowly they started investing in automobiles and consumer goods. And in 2019 we can see that around $5,000 million is well diversified in various areas. That means infrastructure, consumer goods, real estate and automobiles. Slowly China is acquiring more and more stake in the Indian economy. If you talk about the unicorn companies, now what are unicorn companies? These are the startups with valuation of more than $1 billion. Most of the Indian unicorn companies are having Chinese investment. You can see that how Snapdeal, Ola, Swiggy, Paytm, Flipkart, Big Basket, Zomato, Hike, they are having investment from China. You can call it that slowly the China is invading the markets of India according to the opportunities of liberalization which India provided after 1990s. So What are the changes which has been made recently? Changes are the countries which share a border with India will have to take the permission, from the government before doing the investment. You can see the government nod is necessary from the neighbors. So now this is the first point, that the companies which are neighboring India, they will have to take the permissions. Previously, only investment from Pakistan and Bangladesh were facing these restrictions. That means before doing investment in our country, they have to take the permission from the government. Revised FDI policy is aimed at, the purpose is curbing the opportunistic takeovers, acquisitions of Indian company due to the pandemic of COVID 2019. And specifically, we're talking about here China. Now, India shares border with Pakistan, Afghanistan, China, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. Already with Pakistan and Bangladesh, these restrictions were put in place. Now we have added certain countries like Afghanistan, China, Nepal, and Myanmar. Our main purpose here is China. Now, as I told you, the background that why India has done this thing, because recently the Housing Finance Company HDFC, now this is one important question. Housing Finance Company, what are housing finance companies? And one more question in geography can be asked about these, the land boundary sharing with the countries. Now आपको लगेगा काफी simple है ये, लेकिन ये simple इतना नहीं है. We'll discuss about a question which can be framed. Now these are the two important areas from where the question can be asked. Now I was discussing the background. Recently the Housing Finance Company HDFC informed that the stock exchanges that the People's Bank of China now holds 1.01% stake in the company. That means what? The People's Bank of China has acquired the stakes in the Housing Finance Company HDFC. Now this was a portfolio investment. Portfolio investment means FPI. In India, FPI is equal to FII and it is different from FDI. This can again be one question, the difference between FPI and FDI. So the investment in the Housing Finance Company HDFC was the portfolio investment. That means the indirect investment, which is called as FPI. And the government has made changes in FDI. That means the direct investment norms have been revised. Now how the decision will be implemented? The act is Foreign Exchange Management Act. This act again becomes important for UPSC. You need to know about the basics of Foreign Exchange Management Act. The changes will be made under Foreign Exchange Management Act. DPIIT, Department of Promotion of Internal Trade and Investment. It is under Ministry of Commerce. It will frame the policy making rules. It is the nodal department in India for framing the industrial policies. So it comes under Ministry of Commerce and certain rules were made by the Ministry of Finance. That means Foreign Exchange Management Act के अंदर एक तो DPIIT कुछ changes कर सकता है या फिर Ministry of Finance भी changes कर सकता है. This can be again one question of UPSC. Now the question which can be framed from this news, Housing Finance Company के बारे में पढ़ना है. Now when you talk about the basics of Housing Finance Company, it is an NBFC, non-banking finance company, which is a company which is registered under Companies Act 1956. It can also be registered under Companies Act 2013. There are two acts, 1956 and 2013. Engaged in the business of loans and advances, or in the business of share, stocks, bond, debentures, securities issued by the government or local authority or other marketable securities like leasing, hire, purchase, insurance business, chit business, but does not include. That means these are the activities. NBFCs are the companies, are the financial companies. They are not the banks. They are different from the banks. Housing Finance Company is one category of NBFC. There are certain categories of NBFCs based on their functions, areas of activity. So Housing Finance Company is one kind of NBFC. Now what is NBFC? It is a company which deals with loans, advances, shares, stocks, bond, debentures. Now, it cannot do business in agricultural activity. ये पॉइंट याद रखने वाला है. Industrial activity, sale or purchase of any goods, or providing sale or purchase construction of immovable property. These are the exceptions. तो आपको पता होना चाहिए what it includes and what it excludes. It includes the transactions in loans, advances, shares, stocks, chit business, insurance business, but it cannot be an institution whose principal business is of agricultural activity, industrial activity, production of goods, or sale, purchase, construction of immovable property. ये point याद रखने वाला है. Now, HFCs are regulated by National Housing Bank. As I told you, NBFCs are regulated by various regulators based on the area in which they are doing their financial activity. So there is a National Housing Bank which is the regulator of Housing Finance Company, and HDFC was the Housing Finance Company. Housing Finance Company is not regulated by RBI. Please remember this thing, it is regulated by National Housing Bank. There are NBFCs which are regulated by RBI, and there are also NBFCs which are regulated by Ministry of Commerce. So do remember this thing. The next point is FEMA, Foreign Exchange Management Act. The objective is to facilitate the external trade and payment. External trade और पेमेंट किस में होगा? फॉरेक्स में होगा. दैट मीन्स किसी भी तरीके से अगर हम फॉरेक्स मार्केट में डीलिंग करते हैं, our transactions with the outside world will not be in Indian currency, it will be in the foreign currency. And the institutional mechanism which regulates the business, the transactions, the investments in the foreign currency is FEMA. FEMA outlines the formalities and procedures for dealing of all foreign exchange transactions. Now again, foreign exchange transactions can be there in capital account or it can be there in current account. The transactions in investment like FDI, FII will come under capital account. And the transactions in goods, services, remittances, profit, interest, dividend, these are there in the current account. These are the two categories of balance of payment. Any kind of transactions in the forex, the institutional mechanism is FEMA. And we had already seen that FEMA के अंदर Ministry of Commerce, DPIIT and Ministry of Finance rules बना सकते हैं. Now since it talks about the exchange of foreign currencies, so RBI भी automatically role में आ जाता है. That means three institutions play an important role in FEMA. When you talk about the exchange rate management, when you talk about the custodian of forex, it is RBI. So RBI can also put some regulations considering the situation of Indian economy. DPIIT under Ministry of Commerce will also frame the rules and regulations regarding policy guidelines, and the limits like 20% limit in FDI, 30% limit in FDI will be decided by the Ministry of Finance. Do remember this thing. FEMA came in 1999. It replaced FERA. FERA came in 1973. Now FERA represents a controlled economy mechanism. FEMA is a mechanism which promotes liberalization. 1973 we enacted FERA because in India there was a crunch of foreign currency. And in 1973 also India faced one crisis which is called as oil crisis. So because of that oil crisis, our country was not having the forex to import the oil. So we decided to collect the forex. So this FERA Act was on all Indian citizens whether residing in India or not. If they have the foreign currency, they should give the foreign currency to RBI. Take the relevant exchange in the form of rupee and submit the same thing to RBI, and RBI will give the same money to the government for promoting imports of the oil. So FERA represents a controlled economy mechanism where there was a regulation, but FEMA represents the management because it is a tool of liberalization. 1990 is the era of liberalization, and FEMA was passed by Atal Bihari Vajpayee when he was the finance minister of the country. So FEMA was formulated to fill the loopholes and drawbacks of FERA, and hence several economic reforms were introduced under FEMA. So FII norms or FDI norms or any other kind of foreign currency related norms are made under FEMA. So when the government has talked about the regulation, the government nod is necessary for investment in India, then certainly the changes has to be made in FEMA. If I frame some question with reference to FEMA, which of the following statement is correct? It is applicable to all citizens? No. FERA was applicable to all citizens. FEMA is only applicable to citizens which are the residents of India. और यहाँ पे resident का मतलब है 182 or more days. 182 or more days जो प्रीवियस फाइनेंशियल ईयर में इंडिया में रहा है वो इंडिया का रेसिडेंस है. Yes, so here it is applicable to citizens which are the residents of India. FERA was applicable to all residents, whether they are residing in India or not. All citizens, whether they are residing in India or not. Overall, RBI manages the act while the government decides the sectoral limits. This is correct. We have discussed. ये मैंने current news से question बनाया है. RBI overall manage करती है FEMA को, ये point याद रखने वाला है. While the government can decide the sectoral limits of investment like DPIIT and Ministry of Finance. The offences under FEMA are criminal and civil both. No, the offences under FEMA is only a civil offence. Under FERA, it was a criminal offence. And this is also the reform which FEMA brought in our country. The offences under FEMA are only civil offences. Now, once the limit of FDI is increased, it cannot be decreased subsequently. This is again related to the news. See, it depends on the government. The government is sovereign. Nobody can challenge the government whether to increase or not to increase. But yes, one point is there. Once you liberalize the economy and then if you roll back, it creates a wrong impression in the minds of investors and the multinational companies who want to invest in your country. But again, this is a situation of crisis in our country, so we'll have to protect the domestic companies, especially when the share valuations are moving down because of the stock market crisis in our country. So nobody can stop the government from revising the norms. So this statement is wrong. So the correct answer is, now which statements are wrong? Here, this is wrong. Only second option is correct. Third is wrong and fourth option is also wrong. Now, as I told you, हाउसिंग फाइनेंस कंपनी में जो इन्वेस्टमेंट आया था HDFC में, जिसके बेसिस पे राहुल गांधी ने ट्वीट भी किया था, वो एक FPI फॉरेन पोर्टफोलियो इन्वेस्टमेंट था, जो FII भी जिसको बोलते हैं. और इंडिया में जो नॉर्म है, व्हेन द FII द इक्विटी stake is more than 10%, then it becomes FDI. So in India, FII is equal to FPI, and when FII is more than 10%, it becomes FDI. But international norm जो है वो थोड़ी different है. When you talk about the philosophies of FDI versus FII, FDI is when a company makes investment from abroad. Investment means opening up a subsidiary, but FII means investment in the stock market. In a stock market, the share, debentures, these kinds of investments comes under the stock markets. The shares, debentures or bonds. That means in the stock markets, the transactions are in the form of securities. Do remember this point. So FDI is about the technology. It talks about the technology, it talks about the strategies. But FII only talks about, or FPI only talks about the funds. FDI discussion is really difficult because you need to open up a company in the different country. You need to follow their norms, rules, regulations. The law of land will prevail. They will have to follow the taxation norms. In India, the environmental clearances, the construction permits are taking a longer time as compared to other countries. So the FDI is quite difficult and it's a long-term capital. But the FII norms are easy. You don't have to open up a company. You'll have to sit at your room. You have the information technology. You can do the investments in the India. There is no problem. And FII investment can be short-term or the long-term. Basically, it is short-term. It is easy to withdraw the money also at the click of a mouse. But if you want to store your money for longer duration, you can also put the same thing. So this is again one important question which can be asked from this news. FDI versus FPI. Now, as I told you, the neighboring countries question will not be such easy because they can ask in UPSC that arrange the following capitals left to right or top to bottom of the neighboring countries of India. Like for example, if I arrange from top to bottom, first is Kabul, uh, second is so when I talk about the arranging capital from top to bottom, at the first number, just wait for a minute. At the first number, I have, so if I talk about the arrangement from top to bottom, the first is Afghanistan, the second is Islamabad, the third is, if you see it properly, the third is New Delhi. Now fourth is Bhutan, fifth is Nepal, sixth is Dhaka, and the last one will be Sri Lanka. So it would not be much easy, as I was telling to you. The first is, that means if you move from top to bottom, it is Kabul, then Islamabad, then New Delhi, then it is Thimphu, then it is Kathmandu, then Dhaka, and then Colombo. If you talk about left to right, first is again Kabul, the second one is Islamabad, the third one is India, the fourth one is Colombo. Do remember this point. The fourth one is Colombo. The fifth one is Kathmandu. The sixth one will be Bhutan. And the seventh one will be the Dhaka. This is arrangement from left to right. As I told you, this question is not so easy. You will have to remember the arrangement of the capitals. Now, we have discussed a lot of pre-questions. Let's discuss about the mains question. If I talk about the mains question, see, this news is about the changing norms of FDI. FDI represents liberalization. That means FDI is a byproduct of liberalization, and currently, if we do not put restrictions on the norms of liberalization, then Indian economy can be overtaken by the foreign companies, especially the invasion of China, economic invasion of China. So a question can be made like, a liberalization is like a double-edged sword. On one hand, it strengthens the economy with funds, with technology, with opportunity. On the other, it makes vulnerable towards invasion of the multinational companies through Neo Imperialism. See, imperialism is the byproduct of the colonization which has been done by the European companies. Now, imperialism is the property of controlling the political system, the social system, the economic system by a foreign country of a developing or colonized country. So liberalization in 1990s has brought a lot of investment in our country. Today India became the fifth largest economy of the world. Our per capita income has increased at a very fast pace. We reduce poverty a lot. We are providing employment. A lot of multinational companies are bringing technology. There is a market competition. We are having, $450 billion of forex with our country. So yes, liberalization has given us a lot of benefit. India became the fastest growing economy, but liberalization also comes with a concern when your economy is not in a situation to compete with outside. Like the current situation when the stocks of the Indian enterprises are moving down, then it creates a proper condition for the multinational companies to come and invade the economic invasion of the equity of the Indian company. So it is also coming out with a concern. So it is like a double-edged sword. In the conclusion, we can write that liberalization, since it has two side effects, which is positive as well as negative, so it is the responsibility of the authorities in our country, the policy makers in our country, the institutional mechanism, the regulators in our country, to act proactively in order to maximize the benefits coming from liberalization, but at the same time securing the vulnerable hotspots from the invasion or the repercussions which can be because of liberalization. So they need to act proactively, like the government acted proactively, so as to stop the economic neo imperialism which can be done by the Chinese company in our country. So that's all for today. I hope you might have learned a lot of points from this discussion. Do try to follow the method in which we are discussing the news. We'll meet again. Till then, take care. Good night. Thank you so much.